Parents, today each of us want our child to be successful, but we often suffer from one trap, that is trying to want too much too soon. And that's exactly where success coaching comes in. Think about it this way, parents. What we often want today is like sending our 8 to 10-year-old child for cricket coaching and then playing in the Ranji trophies the very next day. That's not what happens. We need to have a success coach. A success coach is someone who can help us draw a personalized goal for the child and create measurable methods to track the child's progress over time. It involves a process of setting goals. It involves a process of monitoring those goals. It involves creating a concrete action plan to go out and achieve those goals. It also involves various other aspects like getting the child the right access to resources, getting the child to be able to reflect on his or her achievement and redraw goals over time. Can you imagine learning a new language such as English at the age of 40? Yes, that's what exactly happened with a friend of mine during my MBA program. He was so driven to pursue his dreams of developing the space economy in the world that he sold his company, which is over 3,000 crores in Japan, and came to Boston just so that he could pursue an MBA in English and achieve his dreams. Yes, that is entirely possible. And that example made me research into one thing known as the science of timing. To understand the science of timing, we must understand the 4 stages of cognitive development as mentioned by Jean Piaget. The first stage is a sensory motor stage that occurs between ages 0 and 2, where children largely learn through their senses and the world around them. The second is the pre-operational stage, which occurs between age 2 to 7. Here the children are starting to develop more brain connections across them and are starting to observe the world around them to a larger environment, and they learn through language, they learn through play. The third stage comes the concrete operational stage, where children start building for the first time. They start learning logical thinking and develop conceptualization in their mind. Here they must be exposed to logic and they must be exposed to different forms of thinking. And the final comes the formal operational thinking, where people can create abstract concepts, where they can create hypotheses and hypothetical learning. Now, you might ask me, why are these 4 stages important? It's really important because in the first 2 to 3 stages, our brain is rapidly growing. But once our brain starts growing and reaches the age of 11, the number of connections in the brain start sinking down. They start going down through a process called synaptic pruning. What we must ensure is that when the child's brain is growing, the child gets a maximum exposure to a various range of activities. And once that is done by the age of 11, the child is then allowed to the brain will reduce those connections that are unused. So within the first 11 years, we must try to build as many connections through as many experiences and exposure of the child. Too much too soon. That's often the number one parenting problem that we face in today's day and age. We as parents are hooked on to having our children have early achievement, early winning of medals, early geniuses. That's what we want. Parents, I want to share my personal story. At MIT, I realized that very often late bloomers are able to outdo children who were child prodigies or child geniuses. It reminded me of my own childhood. I realized that when I was growing up, I had easy access to a large range of activities. I was never limited or prevented from doing anything that I wanted. And parents, that is the key to understand the science of brain development and timing. When children are at the ages between 0 and 16, their brain grows at a different pace every 2 to 3 years. From 0 to 2, they're learning through the senses and the world around them. 2 to 7, they're learning through play. From 7 onwards, that's the age that they start learning logic for the first time. And at 11 onward, they start learning abstract thinking. Now, our activities and exposure that we give our children must be tuned to these 4 stages of cognitive development for our children. A lot of discussion on the 4 stages of development has been discussed in this book called Range by David Epstein. One example that I really liked is when he compares the growth of Tiger Woods and Roger Federer. Tiger Woods started learning golf at a very young, very early age. But Federer, on the other hand, at an early age was given to play all kinds of sports, from football to tennis to squash. and he only picked up tennis at the age of 11 and thereafter. But as we see, both had miraculous journeys, both achieved success in their own field. But what I feel is Roger Federer could come up with extremely creative ways and could have an extremely long tenure to his career. Whereas Tiger Woods had his entire burst, and today he's also trying to make a comeback. But one key difference here is if you get early exposure to a range of activities, that boosts your creativity, that can boost your longevity, and that is called the T shape of knowledge. Again, parents, as we go through, we will now discuss certain means and strategies where we can give our child the right exposure at the right age and help the child grow and achieve success in the longer run. So let me summarize the few things that I've said. One is we spoke about wanting too much too soon. We then spoke about late blooming, right? That today there are opportunities of achieving success much later in your life. And then we spoke about the example of T-shaped knowledge, how at an early age you can get a wide exposure to activities and then start, finding your passion or doing things later. So to that, my answer to you parents is, let's ask another question. As parents, what are we supposed to do with our children at different stages of their growth? Parents, the key answer here is, as we go about this timing problem or this understanding timing for kids, when the kids are early up, when they are between the age of 0 to 4, we must ensure that they get maximum play time with toys learned from their hands. As they grow up, we must ensure between the ages of 5 to 11, they get maximum exposure to different activities. And parents, I feel that Indian children are often underexposed. They're often underexposed to various forms of culture. Although we have a lot of diversity around us, but if you see, we may not be interacting with people of too many types of cultures. We may not be trying too many different types of food. We may not be trying too many new experiences. We may not be traveling to too many new places. We may not be living in different kind of conditions. We may not be trying too many new activities in terms of sports. We may not be combining academics with sports and creativity. So between the ages of 5 to 11, it is a key imperative of you parents, of all of us, to ensure that our children get maximum exposure to all kind of different activities, to all kind of different people. This exposure will help their brain grow. This exposure will ensure that they get maximum connections in their brain as per the stages of cognitive development. Once they are 11, that's when we start narrowing down. That's when we tell our children, hey, okay, what do you like? What's your interest? What is your passion? And we start discovering those things and start getting the child to focus on what he or she loves the most. Again, children, parents, there are a few key ways in which we can ensure, in which we can encourage our children who are between 4 and 11 to get maximum exposure. I already mentioned about the things that parents could do in terms of taking their children to different places or different activities. But there are also a few subtle ways in which we can act. One is between 4 and 11, we must allow the child a guilt-free method to change an activity. Because, hey, this is what we parents want, right? This is what we want, that our child should be able to switch from one activity to the other. If the child wants to try his or her hand at photography, the child can try it, and the child can guilt-free switch out from photography to, let's say, football next year. So we must ensure that the child can switch out easily. We must also ensure that the child gets exposure to academic pursuits, the child gets exposure to creative pursuits, the child gets exposure to all kind of sporting pursuits, the child gets exposure to language pursuits, which could include maybe a foreign language, which could include the language of music, which could include the language of theatre and drama. So the child must get exposure to these 3 or 4 different categories, which can help the child sort of really expand their range and become like a Roger Federer kind of person who has a huge range and huge longevity. Now, parents, many of you may ask that, well, okay, my child is now already 12 or 13 years old. My child has developed his or her passions, or maybe my child is a little younger and has developed his or her passions. What am I to do then? And that is where success coaching comes in. So success coaching is an organized process where the child gets one-on-one guidance, enabling the child to set his or her goals and pursue the goals over time. Success coaching involves goal setting, activity and achievement planning. It involves time management. It involves resource planning. it involves emotional support, it involves reflection. So if you want to go more into success coaching, I will at the end of this episode give you a framework on success coaching that you can easily follow for your children. Again, success coaching is critical because it also guides us parents on how we can address this too much too soon problem. It lets us parents know that, hey, this is what I should expect from my child when he or she is 14 or 15. And that level of achievement is commensurate with the future plans of the child. So it's very important, parents, to ensure that you have the right success coach for your child. Many of the times you could be the success coach, and hence you might need that framework to follow yourself. But we must ensure that we have a clearly laid out action plan for the children. To summarize this, I'd say up till the age of 11, we give the exposure. And after 11, we start going towards success through an organized planning method of success coaching. As parents, we all want our children to be toppers in the class. But have we ever asked us this question? Where do the toppers in the class end up going to? What do they achieve in life? Are they able to achieve the success that they are destined to? And I'd like to tell you, parents, very often there's a systemic problem on reasons why these toppers are not really able to achieve their entire potential. And there are 4 or 5 critical problems that plague the system, because of which these toppers in the class, if you look at them 20 years later, they are not the toppers in their batch. And there are these 3 or 4 things that we can do to solve these systemic problems. The first systemic problem is called the jack of all trap. As I spend more time with kids, head boy, head girl, or kids in grade 9 and 10, I realize there are many of them who are incredibly talented. But the problem with many of these kids is that they are talented across all the spaces. They've had that early exposure that they require. But today, even when they're 15 or 16, they are unable to identify what they really love to do. And hence, they end up becoming the jack of all. They are there in the annual day, they're part of the head boy, they're doing well in academics, they're doing well in sports. But is there something that they are really master at? No. And that's called the jack of all trap. The second space where many of these incredibly talented and smart kids falter is what I call the gifted child problem. The thing is that these children have been so smart academically, maybe in certain subjects or in certain spaces, that they lose the ability to work hard in those subjects. Everything that they confront is already known to them. And hence, when they come to class 9 or 10, it's easy for them to score the marks without making much of an effort. But when they go beyond class 10, once they confront the most challenging problems, these children are not able to accept that they do not know. They are not able to accept and able to work hard to learn those problems. So we must ensure that these children continue to have that ability to work hard in addition to their talent. The third problem is that, children need to learn to develop the ability to say no. As we all know, in today's day and age, there's just too many things for children to do. There are too many events, too many competitions, and a child could just keep on spending their time in these competitions. But at some point, and particularly when a child is in this 9th and 10th, and these smarter kids, they need to say, no, I will not do this. They need to limit their exposure to certain activities and start going for the tougher competitions rather than going for more of the same level of competitions. And hence, the third problem is to develop the ability to say no to the entirely overexposed environment available for children today. The fourth limitation for kids today is that many a times they become the big fish in a small pond. The question that arises is, yes, your children are incredibly smart, but where are you benchmarking the child to? After a point in time, if the child is, for example, brilliant at swimming, need not be benchmarked as the best swimmer in the school, need not be benchmarked as the best swimmer in the society. We need to dream larger for these children. Instead of becoming the only big fish in that small pond, the child needs to expand their dreams to say, hey, I want to become the best swimmer in my state. I want to become the best swimmer for my nation. I want to represent my nation in Olympics. As you know, parents, we need to have more swimmers also representing our country in the Olympics, in addition to all the other sports. And hence, it's very, very important that we start dreaming bigger and set a wider stage for the children. So to summarize this, firstly, we need to prevent the jack of all trap, because talent needs balance. The child needs to have a balance but also to have a clear direction on where you want to go. The second important point that we spoke about is for gifted children, we need to be able to reflect. The children needs to be able to reflect that, hey, if this is coming too easy for me, can I pick on a harder challenge? Third is, children who do not have the ability to say no, they often suffer from burnout. And hence, it is imperative to prevent child burnout. And finally, we must ensure that children who are succeeding continuously get a reality check by being able to play on a wider, larger stage and setting the benchmark a little higher.